I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, that's our territory. President Trump uses his Davos speech to make his case for acquiring Greenland.
Funding the government for next year is one step closer to becoming reality. I'm Eric Rosales from Capitol Hill. I'll let you know why pro-life groups are all smiles.
Shaky ceasefire as the power shifts in Syria. So does U.S. support. We speak to the Archbishop of Erbil. Plus, fact or fiction, how using AI with a Catholic lens can maintain the search for truth. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the feast day of St. Agnes, Virgin and Martyr. Our top story tonight, President Donald Trump assures world leaders he will not use force to acquire Greenland. The president made the comments during his speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Later, the president announced a possible solution concerning Greenland. He also agreed not to impose new tariffs while negotiations continue.
It's a long-term deal. It's the ultimate long-term deal, and I think it puts everybody in a really good position, especially as it pertains to security and minerals and everything else.
President Donald Trump says a proposed new agreement with Greenland has no end date, and he promised not to take Greenland by force.
I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
Trump believes U.S. control of Greenland would actually enhance the security of NATO.
It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us.
Still, Trump faces criticism.
He was never going to invade Greenland. It was never real. So that was always a fade. And so he says, well, we should negotiate. Well, everybody here has been willing to negotiate for a year.
The president's speech in Davos, Switzerland nearly started on time despite problems with Air Force One. The president had to return to Joint Base Andrews to switch planes after the first one developed electrical issues.
I've come to this year's World Economic Forum with truly phenomenal news from America. In 1 year, our agenda has produced a transformation like America has not seen in over 100 years.
President Trump says America is leading in artificial intelligence and has made historic trade deals with partners covering 40% of all U.S. trade.
And these agreements raise growth and cause stock markets to boom, not only in the U.S., but virtually every country that came to make a deal.
For more, I'm joined by Richard Sweat, the former U.S. ambassador to Denmark. Ambassador, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
President Trump says the United States and NATO have agreed on the framework for a future deal with respect to Greenland and that tariffs will not be imposed on the EU. What are your thoughts on what has transpired?
Well, I'm very much relieved that the president is coming down from the very aggressive initial statements that he made. I'm not surprised by it because that's the way he negotiates. And I think it's necessary in order to establish a firm position to start a negotiation. But with friends like Greenland and Denmark, there's always a desire to cooperate and always a desire to partnership. And we've been working with them since the early 1950s. We have the ability to incorporate them into the agreement between the United States and Mexico and Canada if we want to do that to help Greenland's economic development. But the bottom line is that I think that there's going to be a win-win situation negotiated for all the countries involved, and I'm looking forward to having this go forward on a positive note.
As you mentioned, these relationships have gone back decades, and during his speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, President Trump laid out his case for acquiring Greenland, highlighting national security concerns. How important is this potential deal from a safety and security standpoint?
Greenland has always been a very pivotal and important piece of property that is attached to the Western Hemisphere, not to the European continent. It has played a very vital role. We have a base at the northern tip of Greenland, formerly called Tula. It has had a name change, but it hasn't had a purpose change. Its purpose is to watch for incoming missiles, and it has done that for over a half century, going on 70 plus years. And I've been there, I've seen the facility, I've seen the connection that Greenland has with Denmark. I think all of these things can be preserved and improved upon by the kinds of negotiations that will follow after what the president has just recently said.
Ambassador Sweat, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Vatican weighed in on the recent tensions between the U.S. and Europe. Speaking to reporters earlier today, the Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin said, in part, tensions are not healthy and create a climate that worsens an international situation that is already serious. When asked about the Gaza Board of Peace, he said, "We also received the invitation to the Board of Peace for Gaza. The Pope has received it, and we are considering what to do." Cardinal Parolin added that the Vatican is not in a position to support the board financially. Congress is on track to avoid another government shutdown. However, the final funding bills need to clear several hurdles in a short amount of time in order to beat its month-end deadline. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us with the latest. Eric.
Well, good evening, Veronica. The pressure is on in the House to pass 4 of the most challenging spending bills. They include funding for the Department of Defense, HHS, Labor, HUD, Transportation, Education, and Homeland Security. House Speaker Mike Johnson says that these last appropriation bills were among the most difficult because many of them contain a number of pro-life and pro-family provisions, something Republicans were not willing to give up.
These bills are going to fund the Trump agenda and Republican efforts to restore peace through strength, to defend our borders, and to deport criminal illegal aliens, to rebuild America's infrastructure, and to make America healthy again.
These last appropriation bills contain a number of Republican-led pro-family provisions. The Hyde Amendment is maintained in HHS funding, which prohibits taxpayer funding for abortions on demand. $1.2 billion will go to support maternal and child health, including children with special health care needs. And $500 million will go to charter schools, including Catholic-based education. Catholic lawmakers tell me keeping the Hyde Amendment was a red line for Republicans.
The Hyde Amendment is a critical part of our pro-life agenda, and we're not looking to compromise on it. We're looking to maintain it. No tax dollars should go to fund abortions, and that's a policy we've had for many years.
That was a priority for the entire conference to make sure that we kept the Hyde protection in. I think the Democrats recognize it as a priority for us, and we're unwavering in that.
Some add getting Hyde included wasn't easy.
I will tell you that was no easy task. That was a heavy lift in order to get those in there. But we were able to do it by staying together, and that's the key to this. Making sure that we all stay together, we're all on the same page, all of us agree on this.
House Democratic leadership plans to vote against the Homeland Security funding bill because they claim it doesn't include enough reforms for immigration and custom enforcement, and add they remain committed to abortion access for women.
Defending freedom, including a woman's freedom to make her own reproductive health care decisions, and contrast that vision with the extreme MAGA Republican plan to criminalize abortion care, impose a nationwide ban, limit access to IVF and contraception.
And by the way, the House hopes to pass this last set of government funding bills tomorrow. Now, if it does pass, it'll move on to the Senate, and they hope to take them on next week and to prevent a government shutdown before the January 30th deadline. It's also important to note that all this week, House Republicans are featuring a number of pro-life bills leading up to Friday's March for Life. One bill ensures universities and colleges inform pregnant students of their rights and resources that are available to them. Another would redirect temporary assistance for needy family money to help pregnancy care centers. I'll keep an eye on both of those votes. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
The Supreme Court has voiced some hesitation over President Trump's attempt to fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. Justices voiced skepticism over the move, which stems from denied mortgage fraud. The justices debated whether President Trump has broad unilateral executive authority to fire someone from the central bank despite its special status as a standalone federal agency. Justice Kavanaugh warned that removing Cook could shatter the Fed's independence, a move that hasn't been seen in the bank's 112-year history. Mexico has extradited 5 high-profile criminals to the U.S., including Iraqi, the alleged leader of the Northeast cartel in several states, and Delta One from the Jalisco New Generation cartel. The detained cartel members were transported to multiple U.S. cities under the condition that they will not face the death penalty. This operation brings the total to 92 individuals extradited during Donald Trump's second term in office. Both governments view these moves as a milestone in security cooperation following President Trump's demands for the Mexican administration to intensify efforts against organized crime. U.S. military forces say they seized a 7th oil tanker connected with Venezuela. The operation took place on Tuesday as part of the Trump administration's effort to crush illicit activity in the Western Hemisphere. U.S. Southern Command says a Liberian-flagged tanker owned by a company in Hong Kong had taken oil from Venezuela. The vessel was sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department under an executive order related to Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Officials have said the only oil leaving Venezuela will be oil that is coordinated properly and lawfully. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly. Abduction crisis. Over 100 worshipers remain in captivity in Nigeria. We have the latest. And thousands of ISIS detainees are being moved from Syria to Iraq. What it means for regional security. 163 worshipers remain in captivity today after armed bandits stormed 2 churches in Kaduna, Nigeria during Sunday services. While 9 managed to escape the initial raid, the fate of the others remains unknown. Local leaders and residents accuse the police of politicizing the crisis after officials initially denied the attack occurred. However, witness accounts described gunmen using sophisticated weapons. The incident has triggered a diplomatic firestorm, with President Trump designating Nigeria a country of particular concern and threatening military intervention to stop what he calls the targeted persecution of Christians. In a statement today, U.S. Central Command confirmed thousands of Islamic State group detainees are being moved from Syria to Iraq. It comes during a tense ceasefire between the interim government and Kurdish-led rebels. The transfer highlights the concern about the security of the detention sites. So far, they have been guarded by Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic forces. Under a new ceasefire agreement, the SDF agreed to give control of the prisons to the Syrian government. In the midst of the transition, suspected ISIS fighters escaped from the largest detention facility. The U.S. was once SDF's main ally in the fight against ISIS. The Trump administration is now supporting Syria's new government. I want to bring in Archbishop Bashar Warda, the Chaldean Archbishop of Erbil in Iraq. Now, the last 2 weeks in Syria has been tumultuous. Kurdish-led forces that were aligned with the U.S. in the fight against ISIS lost most of its territory in northeast Syria to a government offensive. What are you hearing about this now?
Well, it's quite dramatic in a way because, the violence is back again to the street. The use of force to settle political disputes is back again on the scene. And this have also led to lots of what we call the fear among the families. I spoke this morning with our priest in Qamishli, where we have around 7,000 Christian families from different churches. And he said that everyone is really afraid. There is a fear that violence will come again.
We are learning that the U.S. military has begun transferring detainees from the Islamic State group from Syria to Iraq. How concerned are you about this?
You see, this issue have been always a concern for so many people, because those prisoners have not really been like trained, or at least go and any rehabilitation programs. And I'm afraid that some of the interviews that we saw from those camps are just terrifying. Big fears. I mean, how comes that you leave so many people in prison there without any rehabilitation for that to put them back again to the country? God forbid if some of the stories is a truth, that prisoners run from prison, and really very tough fighters, like what happened in 2013 and 2014. You know, these memories is just have so many fears in our memory, and we have to be always careful. That's why we encourage and we call the U.S. government to really take a closer look and be really careful when it comes to this part of the world.
Archbishop Warda, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
A massive winter weather system is currently tearing through the United States, leaving a trail of chaos for millions in the Northeast to the Deep South. Residents in upstate New York are digging out after a lake-effect snowstorm already dumped over 20 inches of snow on Interstate 90. Whiteout conditions triggered a massive 60-vehicle pileup, forcing officials to shut down all westbound lanes. But the brutal weather is just beginning. A blast of Arctic air is fueling the season's most extreme storm yet, set to slam the Midwest and plains through Friday. The dangerous system is on track to move into the south and east by the weekend, bringing a mix of snow and ice from Texas to Virginia. While most of us view the northern lights from the ground, Russian cosmonaut Sergei Kud-Surfkov recently captured a perspective that few will ever experience firsthand. From his vantage point aboard the International Space Station, the celestial display wasn't just a distant light show. It was an immersive environment of vibrant neon hues. By filming this high-altitude phenomenon, the crew provided a rare glimpse into the complex chemistry of our atmosphere, where oxygen atoms collide with solar energy to create a breathtaking view. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, faith meets AI. As artificial intelligence races ahead, can faith help guide it in the right direction? Plus, Pope Leo talks about humanity's sublime vocation and what it means for our lives. As artificial intelligence continues to evolve, church leaders and Catholic tech innovators say the question is no longer whether AI will shape the future, but whether faith will help shape AI itself. EWTN News Vatican correspondent Valentina Di Donato has more.
It's being called a bridge between faith and technology. As artificial intelligence becomes more deeply woven into everyday life, questions are growing about ethics, truth, and human dignity. And an AI platform is offering a distinctly Catholic response. EWTN News takes a closer look at Magisterium AI, what its creators say set it apart, and why the Church believes engagement is critical. Matthew Sanders is the creator of Magisterium AI. He created the engine to align with church teachings, a first of its kind that we are testing out.
I can assure you that the primary objective function of the secular models is not fidelity to the magisterium. And that's precisely what the objective function of Magisterium AI is. So those objective functions weight heavily on the ability to evaluate the model, but also in its capability. And so this is why when you're choosing a model for things like faith and morals, you have to be very cognizant.
EWTN News was able to enter inside of the Pontifical Oriental Institute and the Alexandria Digitization Hub, where the work of digitizing the patrimony of the Church takes place. It is a meticulous process. We watched as Catholic teachings were scanned in order to give Magisterium AI information on church doctrine, furthering its knowledge set. But it comes at a time when concerns are being raised about the ethics of AI, especially for those most connected, the youth.
Governments and international organizations have a responsibility to design and implement policies that protect the dignity of minors in this era of AI. Yet, safeguarding the dignity of minors cannot be reduced to policies alone. It also requires a digital education.
While AI has undoubtedly opened new horizons for creativity and efficiency, it has also raised concerns about humanity's openness to truth, beauty, and contemplation.
I think it's important to acknowledge that any time that we're going through a massive civilizational change, that there's going to be consequences, right? Some of those good, some of those bad. I think it's very important to study what those consequences are. And in large part, that means that we have to have an active dialogue with the people who are building and basically ushering the technology into the age, which is why I'm so encouraged that the Pope has an active dialogue with a lot of leaders in the industry.
Looking ahead, Sanders believes the next few years will be decisive.
What do you see 20 years from now? How will it be? How will it change our life in your vision?
If we as Catholics choose not to engage, if we allow the technocratic elite to determine how the technology is used, if we allow the transhumanist vision to take hold, it could unravel civilization. So I'm being dramatic, but I think the moment calls for a dramatic response. A large part of what the world will look like will depend on the choices we make really in the next few years, I think. So in some respects, I couldn't be more optimistic about the future. I really do think if the right choices are made now, that we have the possibility to unlock a real golden age for humanity.
In Rome, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
Pope Leo continues his catechesis on the Second Vatican Council's dogmatic Constitution de Verbum on divine revelation. He stresses that Jesus reveals the Father to all by involving us in his own relationship with him.
Che è insieme il mediatore e la pienezza di tutta la rivelazione.
At the weekly talk, the Holy Father emphasized that Jesus Christ reveals the Father through his own humanity. He explained that in Christ, God has communicated himself to us, and at the same time, he has manifested to us our true identity as his children, created in the image of the Word. Pope Leo concluded by telling the faithful that by following the path of Jesus to the very end, we reach the certainty that nothing can separate us from God's love. In Washington, D.C., thousands will gather for the 2026 March for Life this Friday, walking from the National Mall to the Supreme Court to defend life. The theme for the 53rd Annual March for Life is Life is a Gift. This year, President Trump will send a special video message, and Vice President J.D. Vance, as well as Speaker Mike Johnson, will address the pro-life crowd in person. Don't miss this incredible witness to life. Be sure to follow our live coverage of the march, which begins at 9:30 a.m. Eastern on Friday, January 23rd. You can go to youtube.com/EWTN News. We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.